Welcome to the Operators Association podcast. I am your host, William Branham, retired Navy SEAL, sniper instructor, entrepreneur, keynote speaker, podcast co-host, father, husband, son, and overall just your average regular guy who wanted to do some extraordinary things. And so I did. This will be my last episode talking about my BUD/S journey, and quite a journey it was. It was an adventure, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. If I could, I would. But unfortunately, they don't let us go back in time and go through BUD/S again. I mean, there were lots of trials and tribulations, and I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about teamwork. I learned a lot in BUD/S. So hopefully you guys take some of my lessons learned and run with it and use them in your everyday life. So this episode is all about Hell Week. It's getting ready for Hell Week. It's hardships. It's again, lessons learned that hopefully you get something out of this. So Hell Week and SEAL training is the most famous week of all special operations training in the world. It's 5.5 days of just go. And I say it's the most famous week because when I talk to people and I tell people that I'm a Navy SEAL, they say something like, "So you also made it through Hell Week?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I made it through Hell Week and the other 25 weeks of basic SEAL training." So everyone knows Hell Week. They think that Hell Week is the thing that makes you a SEAL. It is not. Although we did lose, or most classes do generally lose between 60 to 70% of the class that remained up until Hell Week. And then after Hell Week, you generally don't lose very many people to quitting. Hell Week is hard. It's grueling. You don't get any sleep. I mean, to be more accurate, you don't get more than 3 hours of sleep the entire week. And those 3 hours of sleep or 2 hours of sleep that we got was the worst thing that could have possibly happened to me or to us. You're perpetually wet, cold, and sandy. Men have died during Hell Week. Men have gotten flesh-eating bacteria. They've lost part of their leg. They've lost other body parts and were dropped from training. I have a friend who started BUD/S with me. He didn't get rolled back quite as many times as I did, but he was going through Hell Week with Class 206. He got hypothermia on a 2-mile ocean swim during Hell Week, where his rectal core temperature was, I believe it's still a record today, was 88.2 degrees. And so they kicked him out of Hell Week, and he had to start all over again in Class 207. He made it all the way through with Class 207. He became a SEAL. This reminds me of a question that was asked of me today. He went on to work with some agencies out there, some tier 1 agencies that are not with the Army or with the Navy. Actually, they call it maybe Army of, I don't remember exactly what they call it, something about Northern Virginia. But anyway, you can make it through partway through Hell Week, and if you don't make it all the way, guess what? You start BUD/S all over again. And but really, for the most part, but Hell Week is pretty easy. It's an extremely challenging week, but it's not the hardest thing that you'll ever do in your life, and it's far from it. Hell Week is really easy in the fact that you only have 2 decisions to make. You either can quit or you can keep going. And then you have one other decision that you can make. You can just keep going and be mediocre, or you can keep going and be awesome. And I'll cover that a little more in a minute. But you have those same decisions to make. Quit or keep going or be awesome. Every hour, every minute, every second, every day of Hell Week. So just because there will be times in your life that you're going to have to make decisions that may be life-threatening. Do it now. Make the decision now. And those decisions, those things that you will do, that you will be required to do, the things and the outcome of those decisions are going to be much harder to make than Hell Week. You know, you could have life or death decisions. Hell Week is just, do I stay or do I leave? Do I keep going or do I quit? Or do I keep going, or do I keep going and be awesome? And so those are the only decisions you have to do with Hell Week. And if you decide to quit, then that's your decision. But if you decide to keep going, you should decide to keep going and be awesome. So Hell Week starts on Saturday night. I'm sorry, it starts on Sunday night, not Saturday night. I would argue that our Hell Week kind of started on Saturday night, but it really starts Sunday night about 8 p.m.-ish after it gets dark. So it could start a little bit earlier, depending on the time of year. Winter, obviously, it gets dark earlier, so you could start Hell Week a little bit earlier, generally 8 or 9 p.m. But you really start prepping for Hell Week the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday prior to. So you're out there, you're getting boats ready for a week of punishment, because you will not leave those boats pretty much the entire week. You patch holes because you do not want your boat to go flat during Hell Week, because it pays to be a winner. You fix the handles on your boat, you find good paddles, you find good life jackets, and then you also stage helmets for rock portage, which I did not cover in first phase. It's an event that you do where you land, you get your IBS, your inflatable boat small, and you land on the rocks that are outside the Hotel Del Coronado. But I'll cover those that event in a little bit, because you do rock portage again during Hell Week. You have to also prep your uniforms and any medical supplies that you're going to need. Because every day during Hell Week they do a medical inspection on you. So you've kind of finished the day, and generally it's before dinner. So you go throughout the day, you come back, you strip all your old clothes off that you're wearing, you put them in a bucket, you go through a decon shower, you clean all the sand off of you or mud or whatever you've got going on. It's only cold water, so don't worry about taking a warm shower there. You dry off. You're still wearing your Speedo or your skivvies or whatever they require you to wear during that time. You go see the medical staff, and they check you out for anything that could negatively affect your health, like I mentioned earlier, flesh-eating bacteria. There was a guy a few classes in front of me. He got some sort of flesh-eating bacteria. He lost part of his leg. They kicked him out of training because he could not finish. And that sucks. It's a double suck, but it is what it is. Also, you have guys running around with broken bones and just trying to hide it. And if the medical staff, if they see you with a broken bone, if it's like protruding out of your skin, then they're probably going to pull you from training and let you heal up and then try again. But that's just the way it is. You can push through a lot of pain. And but they're also looking for signs of any kind of other infection, like cellulitis that you might have, or anything that could negatively affect your health, because their goal as the medical staff is to have you come out healthy on the backside of Hell Week. So after the med checks are done, so just kind of going back, you put on a clean uniform and you wait for the rest of the class to finish their medical inspections. Oftentimes, if you're standing around and you're not looking busy enough, the instructors will have some reindeer games with you, where you'll be doing push-ups or doing some little things with boats, or running back out to the ocean and getting wet or whatever. So it's best to even during Hell Week, when you have these little moments of not being in Hell Week, where like medical inspections or chow or whatever, it's best to stay as busy as you can and look as busy as you can, because anytime you appear to be not engaged in activity, the instructors are going to make sure that you're engaged in activity. So this is also kind of an interesting time of Hell Week and the medical inspections, because I bet we probably lost 20% of the guys that quit. They quit right after the med check. So you showered up, you put on a dry uniform, you're finally a little bit warm, you're dry, you're wearing a dry uniform, dry socks, and you go back and get with your boat crew, and the instructors tell you to go hit the surf, and then guys are like, nope, not going to do that. And I totally get it. And I had a moment, I had mere seconds that I did not want to get in the ocean after an event, and I will explain that one later. But for sure, I'm warm, I'm dry. I don't want to get back in the ocean, and that is what is required of me to continue on with training. So I hurled myself into the ocean. But honestly, you can see it in their eyes. Like they finish up the sort of health and comfort inspection, and you can just see that they're already quitting. And, you really see that Monday, Tuesday, not a lot after Wednesday. But just to kind of bring it back full circle and talking about medical supplies that you might need. So I had these giant blisters on my heels, and it's because I was trying to do some weird stuff with insoles and socks, and I don't even know what, I think I was in 206 at the time, and it might have been 207. I don't remember, but I had these, they were like nickel size blisters that turn into giant holes in the back of my feet, and I still have scars there today. And because you're wet all the time and you have boots on all the time, your body, those things don't have time to heal. They don't have the opportunity to heal properly. So what I did is I took moleskin, and I just had a whole stack of it, and I created these donuts. So the donut of moleskin set around the hole in my heels, and I made about 3 or 4 layers thick, and then I put this gel stuff that was for blisters in the donut, and then I took another piece of moleskin and I covered that up, and then I would put my socks on and my boots on and then went back to the class. But I changed those out every time that we had a health inspection. But I had, I just had a Ziploc that I kept in my locker. I kept with my stuff. And every time that, we had one of these health and comfort inspections, I changed those things out. I had the medical staff look at my heels to make sure it didn't have any infection or anything like that, and then continued on. But, going back to the uniform, you staged a dry t-shirt, dry pants, dry top, and a hat, I think, and it's all ready to go. And then the guys that are waiting for training, that are rolled back, that are in PTRR. So you put on you take your old wet uniform off, drop it in a bucket or in a bag, and it's labeled with your name. And then guys go and do your laundry that night. And then the next day, when you come back that next evening for the medical inspection, you have a dry uniform. And then you give them, and then you just keep recycling these 2 uniforms throughout the rest of Hell Week when you do these inspections. So you always get a dry uniform, and it really sucks to once you're warm and dry to have to go hit the surf, but that's just part of it. So if you do have any issues, medical or what otherwise, that you're going to need, like even meds, like there were some people who had weird meds that they had to take a certain time of the day, so they were all staged. So during the health medical inspection, they could take their meds or they could do whatever they needed to do. So the week before Hell Week kicks off, the CBs come out and they set up these giant tents on the beach, very military-esque tents, and they put cots in there. And this is where you're going to be for Hell Week breakout. You stage your wetsuit in there, your swim fins, you leave them on your cot, and starting around 3 p.m. On Sunday afternoon, you're pretty much ready for Hell Week to kick off. And what our class did is we ordered pizza, a bunch of pizza and Gatorade and some Cokes, I think. And we sat in one of the classrooms and we watched movies for several hours before we were told to go get in the tent. And the purpose of that is, some classes watch like super motivational movies, but really it's to get everyone in one place, make sure everyone is good to go prior to Hell Week kicking off, prior to breakout. And, like I said, some classes watch super motivational movies like Braveheart or Saving Private Ryan or whatever. Saving Private Ryan wasn't out when I went through, but our class did it a little bit different. We watched a movie called Major Payne, and if you have never watched Major Payne, I highly recommend it. It's a comedy. It has a ton of great lines in it. And you know what? Honestly, we use these lines really to help us get through Hell Week. It helped boost morale pretty much the entire rest of training. And almost any time, especially during Hell Week, that things started to suck really bad, someone in the class would start laughing like Damon Wayans in Major Payne, or sing one of the songs or yell a quote from the movie, and it was an instant morale booster. And so that's a trick that you can use in your everyday life. It doesn't matter how bad a situation is or appears to be. If you can find some humor in the situation, you have won. You've taken control back from whatever the situation was. And I believe, quite honestly, humor in really shitty situations is kind of a superpower. So we finished watching the movies, and our proctor came in and told us to go get the tents on the beach and lay down on our cots. And he also said that we weren't allowed to fall asleep. And who's going to fall asleep? You're getting ready, you're very excited, ready for Hell Week. And, the night before, on Saturday night, the fire alarm went off about 5 or 6 times. And every time it went off, we had to, evacuate the barracks. The fire department had to come in. So there wasn't a lot of sleep that happened on Saturday night. So that's why I kind of say that Hell Week really kind of started Saturday, because we were already going into Sunday with pretty significant sleep deprivation. Only a few hours of sleep that night. And then Sunday, it was like, just get ready for Hell Week. Get your stuff ready and let's get after it. So we went out, laid down in the tents, on the cots, not falling asleep. But I certainly didn't plan on falling asleep. But I think around 8 p.m., I was fast asleep and explosions started going off. There was automatic machine gun fire, and instructors were bursting in, screaming at us to get on the grinder. And it had begun. Hell Week had started. This was breakout. Chaos was everywhere. There were fire hoses, machine guns, screaming, explosions. We were told to do all sorts of different exercises, go hit the surf. They were splitting the class up and then, bringing us back together. And, the point of breakout is to try to simulate combat as much as possible. And it goes on for about an hour. So in the middle of all the explosion and gunfire, I remember what one of the brown shirts that was in a couple classes ahead of me when I was in PTRR told me. And so after I went out and hit the surf a couple of times, letting my boat crew leader know that I was going to go hit the surf so I wouldn't be there, and me and my swim buddy. So anytime you go anywhere, anytime during buds, you always have to have a swim buddy with you. Hey, go hit the surf. Well, guess what? You got to bring someone with you. So we did that a bunch of times, and I remember running back, and I kind of started looking around and kind of detaching myself from the situation. And all of a sudden, I could see everything that was going on, all the moving parts, everything that was happening. I saw like the second floor balcony all the way around was it was just filled with people, and people were just up there looking. And before I had no idea that they were there. I just knew what was in front of me, what I was being told. Explosion over here, gunfire over there, fire hose, get down, do push-ups, do belly crawls, do whatever. And I had no idea that all these other looky-loos were around. I had no idea that all this other stuff was happening. But when I kind of detached myself from the situation just for a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, I just took it all in. I didn't stay immersed in Hell Week for that brief moment, and I could really see everything, and I could see behind the curtain of Breakout and Hell Week. And so that was very cool to do. Then I got back into the groove, and I immersed myself back into Hell Week. And I think that's another superpower. Being able to being consumed by a stressful situation and having the ability to detach yourself from that situation and being able to see the bigger picture and all the moving parts. That's when you have control of the situation and the situation does not have control of you. So Hell Week is kind of a culmination of everything that you've done in first phase up until that point. After Breakout, we went out and did a 4-mile timed run. I can still hear McBee, the guy who fell he just like we're running down the beach and he's laughing like Major Payne. People are cheering for us. So that was pretty cool. That was all super motivational. And then after the 4-mile timed run that no one passed because you don't win or pass anything during Hell Week, we did log PT. And let me tell you something. I hate log PT. There's nothing in this world I think that I hated more in buds. There was one other thing, but it was a brief moment. Than log PT. And actually, when I was working out today, I had a little bit of a reminiscent of log PT, doing some of the overhead exercises that I was doing. Because Hell Week, most of the exercises you do with that log are holding it and pressing it over your head as a team, and it sucks, and I hate it. But during Hell Week, and they said, all right, let's go. All right, get the log PT. That was one of the happiest moments of my buds experience, because I knew after we did log PT, I would never have to touch that freaking log ever again in my life. Now, it might have been a little premature because I think we picked up the logs one other time during the week, but it wasn't a big deal. And I knew once I finished Hell Week, never again. And you know what? It has been never again. Then we grabbed the boats. We ran down the beach to do rock portage. Now, I didn't explain this in my first phase section because, quite honestly, I forgot all about it. But there's a bunch of rocks, like a kind of a jetty in front of the Hotel Del California. It's about a half mile down the beach from the Buds compound. And rock portage is really you're paddling your little rubber boats, you're timing the waves, and you're landing the boats on those rocks. Now, if it's heavy surf, then you potentially could get hurt during rock portage. And we had a guy break his leg, like compound fracture, femur, not good, medevaced off during first phase. But the goal is to time the waves, land your boat on the rocks. The guy in the front hops out, grabs the rope, the bow line, and holds the boat in place for everyone else to jump out while the waves like try to suck the boat back off the rocks, and then everyone has to get out and like heave ho to get the boat up and over the rocks. And it's all about timing and teamwork. And I remember the first time we did rock portage at night, and it's at night. And so the danger level is extra high, but that's also why you're wearing a helmet, because there's a very strong possibility of getting smashed into the rocks, and it's better to have a helmet on your head than to not. And I remember the first time I did rock portage at night, I got kind of washed out to sea and then washed back up into the rocks, and then completely lost my boat crew. But then eventually I found them. And we finished rock portage. So after rock portage, we headed to the other side of the base to what they call Steel Pier. It's about 2 miles away, and this is when I started to notice that one boat crew was better than the others. Like, one boat crew was always moving their way to the front of the line. They were winning races because we had already started doing races. And in Hell Week, everything is pay to be a winner because everything is a race and you're doing everything as a boat crew. So I had heard about Steel Pier for years. And, there were a couple of buds quitters on my ship. They talked about how cold Steel Pier was, how cold they were. They talked about Steel Pier, and they talked about running in soft sand in boots, and said just prepare for both of those things. So my expectation of suck factor coming up was high. I had a super high expectation that this is going to suck, and I just need to mentally prepare myself. No big deal. So we got to Steel Pier. We got in the water. We got good and wet. They laid us down on the Steel Pier, and the steel, the reason that it sucks is the steel just sucks the body heat from your body. And so you get cold a lot faster, either in the water or on Steel Pier. Sometimes they make you get naked, not really naked, but yeah, get naked and lay on your cold bare skin on the cold steel. and it just sucks a lot. But I think I had such a high expectation that Steel Pier was going to suck more than pretty much anything else in my life that I was severely disappointed that it didn't suck as badly as I anticipated. I mean, I still have buddies that talk about Steel Pier today. And my Steel Pier experience was not the same as theirs. Mine was like, yeah, it sucked, but not that big a deal. I mean, have been classes previous that most of the class quit at Steel Pier. So we didn't really have that phenomenon when we were going through Steel Pier. Maybe it just wasn't as cold. I don't know what the deal was, but we just didn't have that happen to us. But when Steel Pier was over, we were doing some things with the boats, pulling the boats out of the water up onto the Steel Pier. And one of the boats, or actually I think all of the boats, had Ziploc bags full of like power bars, Snickers bars, other goodies, goo, other things like that, shoved under the floorboard. And our class, for the record, did not put those Ziploc bags under the floorboard. It was the brown shirts who had already been through Hell Week, helping out the class that was in Hell Week, giving us a little extra fuel, a little something sweet while we're out alone and it's sucking. But the problem is they put those bags under the floorboards a little bit early. So this was Sunday night. It hadn't really sucked yet. But we're pulling the boats up and out of the water and getting them up on the Steel Pier and then on the land, and then we're going to go do the next thing. But one of those bags fell out into the water, and the instructors swarmed on that bag like you wouldn't believe. And they were like, what is this? Where did this come from? Why do you have it? Who authorized you to put this in your boat? And so they already knew the deal, and they knew who did it. Maybe they thought we did it. Maybe they thought the brown shirts did it, but the instructors went off script. And for the next, I don't know, probably 6 hours, we did duck walks, lunges, crab walks, bear crawls, belly crawls, and every other kind of leg crushing exercise and race we could do till the sun came up. And again, I'm noticing one boat crew standing out from the rest. No one else is really paying attention to this. I'm noticing it because my boat crew had a bunch of people who didn't really want to be there. For me, I didn't know that we went off script. I just knew that Hell Week sucks and you just suck it up. And I had heard that after the fact that the instructor that sort of was in charge that night, he maybe got into a little trouble, got a little counseling, because Hell Week is it's a script. It's there for a reason, and it's for the safety of the students, to make sure nothing happens or very little happens and to mitigate risk. But they just wanted to just like hammer the dog snot out of us when they found those bags. I mean, they're going to hammer us anyway, but I think we got a little extra attention. And it sucked a little bit. So, like I said before, everything in Hell Week is a race. It all sucks. You're going to suffer the whole time. And the question is, do you want to suffer in the front or do you want to suffer in the back? And most guys generally are just okay suffering in the back. But I'm going to tell you, actions have consequences. And if you win a race or you win multiple races, you get to take a break. And it is kind of nice to be taking a break and getting that boat off of your head, and while everyone else is continuing to suffer. So I'm going to probably say this more than once, that it's better to suffer in the front and win the race if you can than it is to suffer in the back. Because if you don't win the race, you just keep doing more races, and it just sucks that much more. So pay me now or pay me later. That's another thing that you'll probably hear in Buds. So we finished that, that extra leg workout on Turner Field, and we made our way to breakfast. Then we headed back to the Buds compound to do a 2-mile ocean swim. Now, this time, instead of swimming with your regular swim buddy, we did the swim as a boat crew. And something I didn't talk about doing the swims in buds is, first of all, they put you in like a swimmer pool, and they want you to get as close to the next guy and not, they don't want you to be spread out across the ocean before you start a swim, and they want you to stay behind a buoy. And there's a couple purposes of that. One is to, kind of have a good head count of everyone to make sure they have all the bodies, all the people, all the swim pair. And the other is when they say go, it's absolute carnage. Like, you're all buddy until it's time to go, because you don't know when the timer is going to end, when you're going to run out of time, if you're going fast enough, if you're going into the current, against the current, with the current. Because you don't wear a watch and you don't get to keep time. You only know your time when you come across the finish line. The instructor yells out your time. That's it. And then they're also writing it down. So when you start a swim and they say go, guys are climbing all over one another. They're kicking each other in the face. And it's bad enough when you're swimming as a swim pair. Now you're swimming, it's a 7-man boat crew pair. And you have guys that are fast. You have guys that are slow. You got guys that are just don't even want to be there anymore. And so, you're yelling at one another, and people are super pissed off. And then, actually in our boat crew, we had a guy he was like, I've had enough. I want to quit. I think I was in boat crew 4 at the time. I want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And the guys are like, no, stay here. And I'm like, whatever, dude, get out of here. I don't have time for you. Because I'd been at Buds for a super long time. Maybe I had a bad attitude. So we finished the swim. Of course, we didn't pass. Then we did, we changed out, picked up the boats, did more reindeer games. Then fast forward to Monday afternoon, late afternoon before dinner. We're doing a bunch of races on the beach with boats. I think we had the logs out then. And I still was noticing one boat crew was winning. Now, the instructors, they loved Boat Crew 1 because Boat Crew 1 has all the big guys. Big guys, strong guys, the faster, they have the advantage because of leverage and strength and size. But I did notice that Boat Crew 1 wasn't winning all the races. I noticed that a different boat crew was winning, and that was Boat Crew 3. So we had guys at this point, it's Monday afternoon, guys are quitting left and right. And they had us run the O course first with our boats, just kind of on some of the smaller obstacles. I thought this was kind of a fun event. And then we did it again just as a boat crew, just running the lower obstacles. And I remember the same guy that wanted to quit during the swim. He was trying to quit on the O course, and guys were like trying to get him to stay. And I'm like, nope, I was not. I was like, hey, bro, you just need to quit. I had been at Buds for almost 6 months at that point. I had no patience for anyone who didn't want to be there. I thought my time being there and everyone else's time was a gift. Yeah, it sucks. It's miserable. This is hard. But I looked at it as a gift. Like I couldn't have been more happy. I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else in the world. I had waited 4 classes at this point, I think. Watched. This was the 4th Hell Week that I had observed. And I was ready to get it done, get in it and get it done. So I was like, bro, you should probably quit. And some guys didn't like me that much for pushing him out. But you know what? It's good that he quit. Quitting is a decision. You have 2 decisions to make in Buds. You can keep going or you can quit. And the sooner you quit, the quicker we can get on with our training. So it's not for everyone. And that's the point. I was also sick of losing races because guys weren't putting out. And I'm watching a boat crew that's about my size, the same guys that I could be in that boat crew, and they're continuing to win. So enough people had quit at this point. We finished the O course. That guy had quit. So we needed to restructure the boat crews. And there was nothing that was going to stop me from getting in Boat Crew 3. So the way you line up for boat crews is you kind of get in a height line, and the instructors start from the tallest guy and then go to the shortest guy, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I did the same thing. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm about right here. This is my height. And I made sure that I was the same height as the guys in that boat crew. And then when the instructors came down, now I'm in boat crew 3. I'm super happy. And I look around at who's in the boat crew, and there were no superstars. There was nothing extraordinary about any one of the guys that was in the boat crew. Everyone was just average or just above average, and that was it. And now we pick up our boats and we start heading to dinner on the other side of the base. And this is where I really learned about suffering in the front is way better than suffering in the back. This was really the beginning. And we lined up, and boat crew 1 started, then boat crew 2, then boat crew 3, and then however many boat crews were behind us. And there was no one mentioned anything. No one really like, hey, come on, let's go. There was no like pep talk going on in the boat crew ever. But anytime that the guys that were in the front of the boat, they saw a gap between, let's just say, between boat crew 1 and boat crew 2, if boat crew 2 fell back a little bit, the guys in the front were like, let's go. And then we just like sped up and we passed boat crew 2 and got right in behind boat crew 1. And we were like right on their heels. And then if they slowed down a little bit away from the instructor, we would pull out and we would go around boat crew 1. So that was pretty much status quo the entire week. Anytime we're running and this is not a time that you're racing. This is just the mentality of the guys that I was with. This is the mentality of the guys I want to be surrounded with my entire life. You know what? If there's a gap in front of you and you can fill that gap, I'm going to do everything in my power to get around that person or that thing in front of me to fill that gap and to move closer to the front. And you know what? It sucks. It's suffering. My lugs were on fire. My legs were on fire. Like I was just a pool of a big blob of lactic acid just burning. But I couldn't slow down because then I would be slowing the whole boat crew down. So what I had to do is I had to speed up and I had to work through that pain and that suffering. And then that's kind of when the light clicked on. And that's actually where I got stronger, is through those moments of suffering. I worked through the pain and it wasn't that bad. My lungs were on fire, my guts were on fire, and it didn't matter. I got to the front with the rest of the boat crew, and I actually helped push the boat crew and, work even harder. It gave me the motivation, and I hate the word motivation because motivation is temporary, but it gave me the motivation, temporary motivation, to build the work ethic, to work, to be the guy in the front, to suffer in the front and not in the back. So this is also where I learned the lesson that no matter how tired you are, you always have gas in the tank. There's always a little bit more. So there's a ton of times I wanted to slow down because I was tired. I was feeling sorry for myself. But what kind of a turd would I be if I did that? Basically, every time I felt like slowing down, but everyone else was going faster, I just had to make the decision. Do I quit on myself? Do I quit on my team? Or do I suck it up and do I push forward? Do I find that extra little bit of gas, that extra fuel, that extra gear to push the team forward? And so, it was through this adversity of pain and suffering, but wanting to be better than everyone else and wanting to be, and being surrounded by just these incredible, mindful winners that actually helped teach me the mindset of you always have more than you think you do, and to just keep suffering in the front. And it really changed my work ethic in how I approached every other event in SEAL training, and it also kind of changed the way that I look at how I suffer in my own life through whatever adversity that I'm going through. So pretty much the rest of Hell Week is broken up into either laying in the surf or in the bay and shivering uncontrollably, or doing some sort of race or reindeer games. And what they do is they make you extremely cold to the point where you can't really control fine motor movements, and they get you up and then they run you until you get good and warm, and then they make you cold again. And if you can find humor in some of that misery, it always sucks a little bit less. So again, going back to Saving Private Ryan, some quotes out of there, some just kind of laugh like Major Payne. I'm sorry, going back to Major Payne, being able to get some of that humor while it's sucking is tremendously valuable. So throughout the rest of Buds, I know we did some events at the pool, but I don't really remember anything about them. I just remember that they sucked. I also remember doing a scavenger hunt. Of course, it was a race, and the only thing that I remember about the scavenger hunt is there was something about cake eaters, meaning that the point that we needed to go find was the BOQ. Number one, I didn't know where the BOQ was, and number two, I didn't know that officers were called cake eaters, but I did learn that during Hell Week that officers are called cake eaters, and they live in the BOQ. So I think that was probably Monday or Tuesday. But Tuesday midday, the class, we all went into the classroom. They had the heaters on for us, and they gave us 5 kind of complicated questions, philosophical questions, I think. I still have my questions somewhere, and had us write down the answers. I have the questions and answers. And let me tell you, this was the first time that we were able to sit down and actually be warm and still since Hell Week had started. Outside of eating in the galley, where they it wasn't this warm in the galley. It was comfortable temperature, and we were sometimes dry and sometimes not when we ate. But this was like the heat was on high. It must have been like 85, 90 degrees in the classroom. And they're like, okay, answer these questions and do not fall asleep. Of course, this is the game. And so we started answering questions, and then, there were guys that fell out of their chair asleep while writing, and so they had to stand up and write. And then, of course, we were punished after the fact. We told you not to go to sleep, and the class is falling asleep, and of course they're just setting you up for failure. But the cool thing is, after Hell Week was over, maybe it was the following week, the instructors read some of the answers and showed us where guys had fallen asleep mid-sentence on words, where they were writing words and it just became scribble, and it was just a line sort of drawn across the paper, and that was always pretty funny to look at. But that was everything that you do in Hell Week, you're gonna fail, and that's part of it, and they're gonna punish you for it, and that's just part of the game. And if you're not okay with failing and being punished for your failures, then that's not really a place for you to go. You shouldn't go to Buds. You shouldn't go to probably any of these special forces selection courses unless you're willing to accept failure and pay the price for it. So the next, I guess, major event for me, I mean, a lot of Hell Week just sort of blends together, but the next major event for me, I think, was probably Wednesday night. I think around 4 a.m. they said, go lay down on your cots in your tents, and boo, it was warm in there. It was cold and foggy outside, but it was warm in the tents. And they said, lay down on your tents and do not fall asleep. Of course we fell asleep. I did try my best to stay awake, but I fell asleep just like everyone else did. And that, quite honestly, was probably the worst punishment, the worst thing that they could have done to us the entire week. I mean, it was warm in the tents. We were wet when we laid down, and then I was bone dry when I got up. I was warm. They woke us up about 2 hours later. The sun was just starting. It wasn't even rising yet. It was just like the sky had just turned a little bit of pink. They were like yelling at us and called us outside to get in the line. And this is the first time that I realized that we had lost a lot of people during Hell Week. And I think we started probably with 80, 85 guys, and now we were down to 30 guys. And so we lost a big chunk of guys during Hell Week, but I didn't really realize that. And so this was, we got out of the tents, we lined up, we got a head count, and I'm like, wow, we lost a lot of people. And now they're like, okay, get in a height line, and we're gonna recount reshuffle the boat crews again. And I'm like, whoa, there's no way I'm not going to be in boat crew 3. So I did it again. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is where I need to be. And then, of course, all of us in boat crew 3, we just, it was an unspoken rule. We all knew it. We all knew that we needed to be together because we're awesome and we get it. And so we just all kept ending up in the same boat crew. So that was awesome. And what was really cool about it is even though in second phase, when we got our asses kicked with the boats again, boat crew 3, just that were, I think there were 5 of us that were rolled out of 207 and into 208. We all came together and we suffered, we failed, we found one another again, and then we won all the rest of the races in second phase that day that we had boats on our heads and masks on our faces and sea bags on our backs. It was quite an experience. But we all just figured it out, and we knew that we were an awesome team together. And so it was the next evolution after we figured all of that out was quite honestly the hardest evolution for me in Buds. So now that we had our updated boat crews, we were told to hit the surf. Now this was honestly the worst event in all of Buds for me. I was warm, I was dry, I did not want to get back in that ocean. It was cold outside. It was just barely light. It was very damp and very foggy. I mean, it was so foggy you couldn't see the ocean that was 30 feet in front of you, or maybe 30 yards in front of you. And honestly, I thought that we didn't have the people that we had. They were there. They were just on the other side of the fog, and we didn't. We lost like 50 something people in Hell Week, and which is pretty incredible. But now it's I think Thursday morning. And they're like, all right, hit the surf. No one said you could sleep. And of course, we are all failures. They want you to sleep just because it sucks that much more. And again, this is generally where guys quit. No one quit after this or during this. But man, this was one of the hardest things that I did because I didn't want to get wet. And so I ran out into the water. I was about knee deep. And I physically grabbed my own uniform and threw myself into the water. And then I got up and I ran back to get in line, and now I'm ready to go. But man, I did not want to get in that water. Again, I didn't want to get wet at that moment because, again, I was warm and dry. And also, you wake up from like weird nap sleep and you're like a little bit shaky and your body isn't working right. And yeah, your brain isn't working right. And so that was definitely the hardest moment. I had no desire to quit. Quitting was not an option, but I sure as hell didn't want to get back in that water. So I physically grabbed myself and threw myself in the water, and then it was all good. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Maybe seek out that alter ego, that dark side, and just suck it up and go get it. And then from there we went to breakfast, and again, I don't think anyone else quit after that. And the next big event that I remember doing was around the world. And basically what that is, it's a race where you paddle your little rubber boats more or less around Coronado Island, and then you carry them across the strand. So they brought us into the classroom. They kind of briefed us what was going on Thursday afternoon, what around the world was. So we grabbed our boats, we hit the surf. And sometimes in these races, we would race from one station to the next, like maybe a mile or two down the beach, and then pull in, and then we would, when we would take off, we would run out. We'd have to jump out of the boat, flip the boat back over, get back in the boat, and then start paddling, and then paddle down to the next station and just keep doing that. But this was when the instructors started to really notice Boat Crew 3 winning all the races. Again, they think that Boat Crew 1 is amazing because they have all the big guys, all the fast guys, all the whatever. And in Boat Crew 3, it's just a bunch of regular Joes, the gray man that no one notices. But I noticed Boat Crew 3 winning very early on in Hell Week, and I was like, that's where I want to be, and I never, ever left after that. But the instructors finally started to notice that one boat crew was coming in first every single time. And we were coming in first by a long way, like minutes, 10, 15 minutes before the other boat crews. And because of our performance, like we're suffering, like we're working, we're putting out, we're trying to win every single race. At some point, about halfway, 3/4 of the way around the island, we came up on the beach. Hey, what boat crew is this? We're boat crew 3. They gave us warm jackets, warm hats, and they gave us hot chocolate to drink while waiting for the other boat crews to come in. And then the instructors let us continue to sit there, enjoy our beverages with our warm jackets. And it was cold during Hell Week. Warm jackets and hats. And then they were like, why is boat crew 3 beating you guys by 10, 15 minutes every single station? Because it does pay to be a winner. So interestingly enough, it took pretty much the whole week for the instructors to realize that boat crew 3 was continuing to win everything. So that just goes to show that if you're going to put out and you're going to win and you're going to stand out, sometimes it might take a little bit longer than you think of busting your balls and beating everyone else before someone really pays attention to you and gives you the credit that you deserve. Not that we were looking for any credit, we were just trying to win, and we thought it was always better to suffer in the front than in the back. So then the instructors started busting the balls of the other boat crews for not putting out or keeping up with us, and so then it got harder to keep winning, but we did. Sometimes it came down to the final stretch. Boat crew 1, they're bigger and stronger and a little more rested because they've been a little, not putting out as hard as we had the entire week. But we continued to win. We had, and all Thursday night and in the wee hours of Friday morning, we had circled the island. We'd played in the mud flats, another evolution that didn't really live up to the expectations that I was planning. And maybe it's because I think that's where that one guy got flesh-eating bacteria, was maybe down in the mud flats because the Tijuana River overflowed, and there was all sorts of gross stuff down there. So maybe we didn't spend as much time down there as we could have or they have in the past. But it was lackluster. I was expecting a lot more suffering, a lot more suck, and it just didn't happen with us. So then we got back on the ocean side and started paddling. Wow, I can't talk. Back up to the Buds compound. Now, there are these towers that are just north of the Buds compound, of the NSW compound. They're condos. They've been there for a lot of years. They're, 20, 30 stories up. And you can see them clearly from miles away. And as we're paddling towards them, it's a very boring, very uneventful stretch of ocean. Not a lot of lights on, and we're racing, but we're losing momentum, and because we still want to come in first. And guys are starting to fall asleep while paddling, and you smack paddles with the guy in front of you. Piss the guy off. Wake up! And you start yelling at one another, and maybe someone smacks somebody else with the paddle, just to wake you up. I've heard stories of guys paddling and falling asleep, and falling out of the boat into the water. I mean, that really sucks when you're starting to dry out a little bit and you splash into the water. And a lot of guys start hallucinating at this point. And this is where I had my hallucination. It wasn't bad, but for some reason, I'm looking at those towers. We're paddling towards them. It's just like darkness and towers. And those towers turn into a giant alarm clock. And with a time of 0422. I still see it today in my mind, as clear as day. And I don't know why. I don't know if that is actually what time it was. I mean, it kind of makes sense based on how soon the sun came up after we got back to the Buds compound. But I still remember that today. But, as far as hallucinations go, guys see things like sea monsters and mermaids and the Loch Ness monster and all sorts of weird stuff, really on that last leg where it's just quiet and mundane and just dark and boring. And that's where the mind just starts to play games play games with you when you haven't really slept hardly at all for the last 4 days. The last evolution in Hell Week, last major evolution, is the demo pits, and I've talked about the demo pits in some other podcasts where we would do an O course and we'd run down to the demo pits, run around the demo pits, and then run back. So we run the boats down to the demo pits. We have breakfast Friday morning, run back across. We do some other reindeer games, and then we make our way to the demo pits, and then we, again, the last evolution that was incredibly underwhelming to me. Other people said they had a great time in the demo pits. I did not. I thought it was kind of boring and lackluster. But there was lots of smoke grenades, more explosions, more gunfire. There's some mud, some muddy water, some ropes. You do some other little reindeer games. You crawl around doing whistle drills. But it wasn't that exciting for me. I thought it would be a lot more fun, but it wasn't. It kind of sucked. So after the demo pits, the instructors had us line up on our boats, and then we're getting ready to go do the next event, and they call Boat Crew 3 to the front, and then they secured us from Hell Week because we had put out and we suffered in the front when everyone else was being mediocre and lackadaisical and not really putting out. So we were extremely happy. And the rest of the class was extremely pissed off. I talked to a bunch of guys after the fact, and they were like, they were very, very angry. And that's part of the game of Buds, it's a mind game, and you just have to work through those mind games. And so they're like, the rest of the class, you suck. We're going to go one more day of Hell Week. We're going to go into Saturday. Now, in reality, the instructors don't want to continue going into Saturday, but they said, we're going to go do Around the World again because the rest of you didn't put out during Around the World. So get your boats and hit the surf. So they had to run their boats back out to the ocean, flip their boats over, flip them back over, and then paddle back down to the Buds compound. It takes a while to paddle that far. And so for us, that in Boat Crew 3, we were secured. They threw us in the back of the truck. We went to the classroom. We watched the rest of the class pour into the next classroom where they were briefed around the world again, and they were not happy. So they ran out, and while they're being briefed, the rest of us from Boat Crew 3 were eating our box lunch. We're still wearing our same uniform. We don't get to do the medical inspection to make sure we're all good. And then, kind of the behind the scenes thing is that generally a class is secured by the senior ranking officer, SEAL officer in the location. And for our class, the admiral had a bunch of meetings during the day, and so he couldn't come out until later in the afternoon. So the instructors have to keep us busy. No one's going to quit on Friday. It just sucks that you're like, for crying out loud, can we be done with this already? And so finally it was like 3, 4, or 5 p.m. The admiral comes out to the beach. We in Boat Crew 3 had to run out to the beach and catch up with the rest of the class who's standing on the beach with their boats. And then the admiral gave some sort of speech and secured us from Hell Week. I don't even remember who the admiral was or what he said. And then we all hit the surf. And this was another point where I'm like, seriously, I am dry again. I do not want to get wet, but I'm part of the class, so we all hit the surf. And then I had to wait for the next hour, soaking wet, to go through the medical inspections, clean everything up. But I was like, dude, I already secured from Hell Week. I don't need to get wet again, but I did because, I'm a team player and the such. So once you're cleaned up and everyone is good to go, again, the brown shirts or the guys that are in PTR, they go through your barracks and they pull your mattress and they put your mattress on the floor because you generally sleep in bunk beds in first phase. And a lot of times they'll put something under the mattress so that you sleep with your feet elevated, because a lot of guys, you've been running and going the entire time. And a lot of people get kind of some edema in their lower extremities because they finally stopped moving and the body's like, oh my God, let's crank up the the inflammation, to heal all the nonsense that went on down there. So we sleep generally with our feet up. But before we go to bed, we, pizza was ordered and ready to go, waiting for us, and Gatorade and Coke or whatever, Pepsi, and we filled our bellies. And then and it was super interesting. You would think that you would be tired and ready to crash. None of us were. We were up for hours and hours and hours, and probably went to bed at 10 o'clock at night. Most of us woke up around midnight and then, went back to sleep. But we were up at 8 a.m. We were up at 6 a.m. ready to go, because you're your body, your brain has gone into a different mode. You're in go mode. And I remember when I graduated Hell Week, I was like, you know what? It wasn't that bad. Pretty much, I think anyone could do it, because anyone can do it. If you're marginally, reasonably healthy and have the desire, you can finish Hell Week. You can finish any soft curriculum that you want. It's just, do you want it? And that's really the bottom line here. So we all got up at around 6 a.m. Not because we had an alarm. I planned on sleeping the whole day, and that just didn't happen. Up at 6, and I can't go back to sleep. So a bunch of us got together. We went to breakfast, and we went to Marie Callender's, which is a local restaurant, and where it was kind of all you can eat, really good food, and they give free breakfast to Hell Week graduates. If you've just graduated Hell Week, you go in there and say, hey, I just graduated Hell Week. They'll give you a free breakfast. Now, you can tell the guys that just graduated Hell Week. Number one, they know when Hell Week is. Everyone on the island knows when Hell Week is. And number two, you kind of look like shit. So they pretty much know who you are, and maybe you have a Hell Week shirt on now that you wore to breakfast, and you have that going for you. So that's pretty much what everyone does post Hell Week, because you don't sleep that much after Hell Week. And that, my friend, concludes my Hell Week episode. So lessons learned from Hell Week episode. Here's just a few. Hell Week is not as hard as you think it is. You will do things in your life that are so much harder, really, in the decision-making process. You're going to learn things in Hell Week that will help you get there, but you only have two decisions to make in Hell Week. You can either quit or you can keep going. And that's pretty much it. You just have to quit or keep going. The second lesson learned is humor in the face of adversity will carry you through just about anything. Remember, we watched Major Payne, and we used those quotes and the humor from that movie to just elevate our any kind of really sucky, shitty situation that we were in. It made almost everyone that was tuned in laugh and smile, and it made the experience even better. The third lesson that I would say from this episode is, it doesn't matter how tired you are, you always have gas in the tank. You just have to figure out how to tap into those reserves. And then I guess of course the bonus lesson learned here is, it is always better to suffer in the front than suffer in the back. And you guys have heard me say that before, and I'll just keep saying it again. It's better to suffer in the front than to suffer in the back. So that concludes my adventures of getting to buds and getting through buds. People telling me that I couldn't go, people telling me that I would never make it, me failing myself, failing the screening test. But at the end of the day, is if you have something, if you have a goal, if you have something that you want to do, you just never quit. You just keep driving. You either go through it, you go under it, you go around it, you go over it. If you have an obstacle, if you have a goal, you do whatever you need to do to get to that goal. And then once you get to that goal, you find another goal and you go for that goal. And that's just the way that you should live your life. I hope you guys got something out of this, and you use some of my lessons learned and my failures to be better in your everyday life. You guys stay awesome. Don't forget to get naked, and I will talk to you soon out here.